Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys some book recommendations for the prompts for March and April for the Buzzword Readathon. Buzzword Readathon was created by Kayla from Books and Lala, and I'll leave a link to her information in the description below. So the prompt for March is to read a book with a character name in the title, so let's get into it. The first book I want to recommend is Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. This is a contemporary romance book that is based on the Great British Bake Off, so if you enjoy the Bake Off but with a little bit of a naughtier side to it, then I think you'll enjoy this book. The book follows Rosaline as she takes part in this baking show competition, and she meets a lot of funny characters along the way. There were so many laugh out loud moments in this book, so if you're after something that's really funny, I definitely recommend this one. There's also some romance aspects. The main character is bi, and it's just a very fun time for the most part, and I really enjoyed this. Can't recommend it enough. Speaking of queer romances, I'd like to recommend Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This book follows Delilah Green, who is estranged from her family, but suddenly gets asked to become her sister's photographer for her wedding. And while she agrees, she gets to know some of her sister's bridesmaids. There may be a romance happening there, and there's also something not quite right about the guy her sister's trying to marry, so she reluctantly gets involved in all that. This one was really cute. I really enjoyed the romance, and I just had a thought that both the love interest Claire in this book and Rosaline in the previous book are both single mothers. So if you like that, then check that out as well. Next up, I want to recommend Nimona by Nate Stevenson. This is a graphic novel about a shapeshifter who wants to be like a villain's assistant. It's very fun, very easy to read, and there is some darker moments to it. Also, I would recommend the film. If you want to read this, then watch the film. The film is actually a really good adaptation, and I definitely recommend that, so Nimona. On a slightly different track, Cujo by Stephen King. Cujo is a rabid dog. This is a horror book that is about a dog who becomes rabid and traps their mother and son in a car, and you know, bad things happen when rabid dogs are there. The thing that I really like about this book is that you do get to see inside of Cujo's head, and honestly I found it so sad that you can see like the goodest boy become the not goodest boy. So yeah, but I do really like this book and I would recommend it. Next up, I want to talk about the book that I'm going to be reading for this month's prompt, and that is Our Doris by Charles Heathcote. I haven't read this book in about 5 years, but I really wanted to get back to the series because there are 4 books in it, and I really just want to read the entire series. I think I only read the first 2, and then I need to read them all. So this series follows an elderly couple, our Doris and our Harold. It's very northern, and I just really enjoy watching old people be old. I'm not gonna lie, there's something about just watching old people go about their business, and they have this very specific way of thinking, and Charles Heathcote writes it in a way that is just really funny. And I really enjoyed this series. Can't recommend it enough, and I'm so looking forward to this reread because I remember just laughing out loud when I was reading this the first time, so can't wait for that. Another book I want to recommend is Hani and Issues Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagadar. This is about 2 Bengali girls. I think it's set in Ireland or Northern Ireland, I can't remember which, but they decide to fake date because one of them came out as bisexual and her friends don't really believe her, so she's like, well, I guess I'll date someone. And then the other one is trying to prove that she's more than just academic and she's trying to become more popular. So they decide to fake date. It's very cute. There is Dislike to Love, Grumpy Sunshine romance in this, and there's also some more serious aspects to it to do with racism and a lot to do with the Muslim community, and I just really enjoyed this book. Can't recommend it enough. The last book that I want to recommend for this prompt is John Constantine Hellblazer. Now this is a 2-book graphic novel series. I believe it got cancelled after the 2nd book, but the first 2 volumes are still so worth reading if you like darker, horror-ish type of thing. This is the only John Constantine that I've ever read, but it involves a lot of demons, a lot of like really gross things happening. I distinctly remember there being a section of this story that involves a mermaid, and it's kind of gross, but in a great way. I don't know, I just really enjoyed this and I definitely recommend it. Okay, so let's move on to the prompt for April, which is nature words. And this one is a really, really broad prompt, so I'm just gonna throw some things out there. There are many, many things for you to choose from, but here are just some recommendations that I want to give. So first up is Clown in a Cornfield. Now this isn't the best book that I've ever read, but if you enjoy sort of teen slasher horror, then this is a really good book to read. The title is pretty self-explanatory. There's a clown, there's a cornfield, teens getting murdered. That's pretty much what's happening. It's a fun time, and if you enjoy teen slasher, then it's a good one to read. The next thing I want to recommend is a graphic novel called Manifest Destiny, Flora and Fauna. This is kind of a historical fiction fantasy graphic novel about Lewis Clark and Sacagawea, but if there were like horror fantasy things happening, the flora, the fauna, they attack. I don't really want to say anything else about that because they're such short graphic novels, but if you wanted to see a bunch of explorers get wrecked, then that's a good one to read. Next up, I want to recommend A House of Salt and Sorrows by Emily A. Craig. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses story, and it follows a family where the sisters keep dying one after the other, and nobody really knows why. There's just something happening in this family that keeps claiming the lives of each of these sisters, and there are some fantastical elements of this, and it's just this kind of eerie, dark book that is very atmospheric, and I definitely recommend it. The next book I want to recommend is Beneath the Dark Ice by Greg Beck. Now, this is another one of those that is not the greatest book I've ever read. However, if you are after vibes like Jurassic Park, then this is a good book to read. Because this book is about a group of people who end up going beneath the dark ice in Antarctica, and there are prehistoric creatures that attack them. I don't like the thought of things coming out of the ice, but I do like the thought of watching like action heavy people be battered by prehistoric creatures. So honestly, it's a fun read and I recommend it for this prompt. The next book I want to recommend is The Wicker King by Kay Ancrum. Now, this is an interesting book to read if you like reading about mental health, because it follows these two boys as they sort of fall in love, but one of them is starting to have hallucinations, and that's kind of mimicked in the format of the book. I don't know how much you can see. It gets a bit darker. If I flip through, there is a mimicking of his mental state, and it's a really interesting read. I definitely recommend this one. The next book I want to recommend is The Wolf of Wessex. This is a historical fiction book about an old man who ends up in the wrong place in the wrong time, and him and his dog go on an adventure to try and avenge some people that were murdered. And he's just like an old guy. If you really like legend and trust the legend, then you will really like this book, because I can definitely see some similarities between the two characters. An old man who is a retired warrior coming back out of retirement to kill people because, you know, that's what he needs to do for justice. I just love that sort of book, so I definitely wanted to include that one in this list. And the last book that I want to recommend is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This book is about a girl who was raised in this fantasy library that contains very dangerous books, and the books don't just stay still, they are like enchanted and have minds of their own, and the most dangerous book in the library has escaped, so you sort of follow her on this journey. There are some other really fun characters in this, and I just really enjoyed this book, so I wanted to include it here. So there we have it. Those are all the books that I want to recommend for the March and April prompts for the Buzzword Readathon. I hope you found a recommendation here. If you have any recommendations that you want to leave in the comments below, then I would love to see them. And if you made it this far into the video, please leave me some sort of nature emoji. I will leave that open to your imagination, just like this prompt. And if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!